All right, welcome to the conversation. Ron Johnson is one of the worst senators in the country. He's a Republican from Wisconsin, and he's the one that's been out there backing Donald Trump in every way imaginable, and in some ways not imaginable, including defending the Capitol rioters, et cetera. So, he's up for re-election, and there are going to be a lot of Democrats vying for a seat. And we've brought on here the person who is arguably, if not definitively, the most progressive of those candidates. It's State Senator Chris Larson. Chris, welcome to TYT.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back, Cenk.
All right. Last we talked was during the walkout that you guys did in Wisconsin to protect workers' rights against Scott Walker, right?
That's right. Yeah, which obviously ended up being a lead up to Donald Trump and all the bad things that he's done. We left the state for 3 weeks to be able to make sure that there was room for teachers, public employees to be heard, as there was this effort to go after workers, go after educators in our state. And we stayed out for 3 weeks before going back. And thank you for highlighting that. It ended up focusing the attention of the country on Wisconsin and putting some pressure there where it needed to be.
Yeah, no, you guys are courageous about that. Actually, I'm curious, so catch me up on Wisconsin state politics for a second, because now you've got a Democratic governor finally, but Wisconsin was one of the states where as the governor was coming in, the Republicans tried to strip him of his powers. Is that, do I remember that right or no?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They did everything they could to basically strip all the powers away from this office. So just about any rulemaking that goes forward has to go through the legislature in one of the committees to be able to go through approval. Any and all of his department heads have to go through the legislature for approval, and if they are voted down, they cannot be put forward again. And a number of other different issues. One of the big ones being that we can't accept the Medicaid expansion with unilateral decision by the governor, which used to be the case. The legislature blocked it. So, which is why we're one of the last 12 states in the country not to expand Medicaid, despite how it would give $1.7 billion to our state and cover 90,000 people. So yeah, they played pretty craven politics with this, and we've seen that. I think we're up to 78 different spots that the Republicans in the legislature have refused to approve, posts that were up for approval, and they're just holding over, and they're pulling a Mitch McConnell where they're just going to try and wait out this governor and hope that the gerrymandering keeps them in power for one more term and that they can take the office.
It's really maddening, and I want to get to the fight within the Democratic Party for this in this primary. But before we get there, I just want to probe a little bit further about Wisconsin, because Russ Feingold used to be the senator from Wisconsin. He was one of the most progressive senators in the country. Wisconsin has a history of being very progressive at different times. And then Ron Johnson, basically a terrible right winger, obviously for the rich. I mean, just over the top for the rich and not for anyone else. Beat Russ Feingold in a race, and then you got a Democratic governor, but like in a lot of other states, the Republicans hold the legislature. It's so frustrating. So Wisconsin is a mystery to me. So I'll ask you this easy question: what the hell's going on in Wisconsin?
I like that you think that's an easy question. Yeah, I mean, it was a huge swing from Russ Feingold, and I consider myself a Feingold Democrat. So it was devastating to see him lose to somebody like Ron Johnson. And it was, he lost in 2010, he lost in 2016. And unfortunately, I think now people are really figuring out how bad Ron Johnson is. This is a guy who is, you're right, he's horrible in terms of how he has just kind of deferred to Trump, even with Trump out of office, and everything from questioning the efficiency of vaccines to promoting crackpot science in the committees when he was a chairman. This is a guy who was also in Russia over the 4th of July and came back echoing Putin's statements about deferring to Russia on many different points when he was the Homeland Security chair. But you're right. Beyond that, at a very basic level, Ron Johnson is somebody who has used this office to benefit himself and his family personally in boosting their wealth. He came in as a millionaire, but he boosted himself to being the 6th richest US senator. And this, of course, is a body where 66 of the 100 are already millionaires. And he did that using the tax law to benefit himself. So at the very basic level, this guy is looking out for the rich, looking out for himself, and has used every book in the corruption dictionary to try and get himself more funds.
So, look, your race is so interesting. It's one of the most interesting races in the country because, kidding aside about it being an easy question of what the hell is going on in Wisconsin, really what that boils down to is Wisconsin is now kind of replaced Ohio and Florida as the swing state. For a long time, that's what Ohio and Florida were, but they're not anymore, especially Ohio, that's gone. That's mainly Republican now. But man, Wisconsin is so razor thin margins in these last couple of cycles, and it's making a giant difference. And so that leads now to the question of what's happening within the Democratic primary, because our thesis has been for a long time, obviously being progressives, that progressives would run better campaigns against Republicans. And of course, establishment Democrats said, no, we can't risk running someone that's actually populist in favor of the people. We've got to run a corporate stooge, et cetera. So right now, what's the state of the primary? Who are your opponents? And how is it playing out, establishment versus progressives?
Yeah, so right now there continues to be a growing field. I think we're up to 8 candidates who are now running. There are a couple of establishment folks who are getting some support. I don't want to prescribe to bad mouthing them directly. I do want to make sure that we beat Ron Johnson. But I also think, look, having run against big money before, having run against the super rich, there is a certain mindset that they come in with. If they have a choice between doing something that benefits their stock portfolio and their hedge fund versus doing something that helps the people, unfortunately, we know where the decisions go. We've seen it in the system that we've got, which is rigged, right? I think most people look at it and they think it's broken. The reality is it's rigged, and it's rigged that way because the super rich, directly or indirectly, are running so much of the program and pushing so many of their politicians. So it's a crowded primary, and it's nationwide as people are focusing on this. It is a question of what's going to happen in the future of the Democratic Party. Is it going to be a party of progressives, a party of the grassroots, a party of people who want to see healthcare as a right and not a product? If they want to see something like the Green New Deal move forward so that climate change is something that's addressed in every policy decision we make from the very top. If it is one that's going to hold the wealthy accountable so that they pay the same rate of taxation that their secretaries do or that the day laborers are paying. And that's the question. That's what's going to be on the ballot as we go through this primary. So I get it's getting busy. It's looking like a Greek restaurant menu after bar time, and people are trying to focus on deciding what they want. And so I'm hoping folks across the country take note of where the progressives are, where the grassroots are, and get involved in this race.
So, Chris, I'm curious what the Democratic Party's reaction in Wisconsin has been, because in the old days, if a progressive ran, it would be ostracized and it'd be whispered campaigns and considered illegitimate, et cetera. But you've been a state senator for a long time. You were the youngest state senator in Wisconsin. And within 2 years, you became the Senate Democratic leader and so that's all of these are. It's hard to argue that you're not an incredibly legitimate candidate. And so nobody would ever make that argument if it wasn't for the fact that usually the party and the media support the establishment candidates. So I'm curious what the reaction has been. Do you view it, do you have a sense of it being a relatively even playing field right now within the Democratic Party in Wisconsin, or are they leaning towards the other candidates as usual, just based on ideology?
For sure. I mean, we'll see. The primary for this isn't for another 13 months, so we'll see how it ends up breaking out. But I share your concern that there may be a tilt towards some of the more corporate candidates, some of those that kind of favor the establishment line and don't favor rocking the boat. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I've built my entire career around pushing the envelope, right? Of pushing to make sure that we are doing the right thing, that the party is doing the right thing. And through that, I've held 10 trainings over as many years to train up the grassroots to make sure my neighbors have the tools that they need to push back and organize. Through that, we've helped elect 36 people to offices as varied as local school boards all the way up to statewide. And that's something I think we need to be doing across the state, something we need to be doing across the country. So I think that's going to help. I get that there's always this downward pressure to try and push for the establishment and push for incremental change. But that's exactly why people need to lean in, get more involved, and shake things up. Otherwise, the status quo never changes. It might not happen overnight, and I get that the system is rigged, and it seems like things are stacked up against us. But that's more reason than ever to make sure that we fight, especially in this election where right now the US Senate is at the thinnest possible majority, right? 50-50. And nothing short of democracy hangs in the balance. Right. And we're seeing people who are getting gun shy of actually moving forward to protect the right to vote and make sure that people can't overthrow democracy and overthrow elections. So that's what's on the ballot here. Wisconsin is the only state with a very vulnerable Republican that was a swing state and came this close last election. So this is one where folks, if they get involved, not only can we elect a progressive, we can elect the grassroots to get involved and to push things in the US Senate towards saving our democracy.
Right, and we're out of time, but I want to let folks know just, you should always go to Chris' website to find out what he's about and look up all his issues. But Green New Deal, Medicare for All, in favor of wealth tax, endorsed by Blue America, PCCC, We Have the People. So Chris, what is your website so people can find out more?
Yeah, thanks. I should be doing that more. Voteforlarson.org is the website to check out, and feel free to shoot me a message if you have questions about any other issues. We're rolling them out 1 week at a time here. And thank you again for having me on the show. Always love being on. Appreciate the good work you do.
No problem. Chris Larson, progressive and Democratic fighter. So we appreciate that. Thank you for joining us.